Hello, mods. Good morning. Archaic's family. Let's get that audio check done real quick. I'm pretty sure it's good. I have had no issues since I purchased this new mic, but we're going to check. Oh, you guys know it must be a special occasion. What is Jason doing wearing a collar? How did that happen? What timeline did we wake up in this morning? You guys know I don't do it often. I'm a t-shirt guy, and I pride myself on a huge collection of t-shirts that I have purchased. Some I've had made, and many that you guys have donated to me. And only in public do I really go out in collars. But this is David Morgan. I'm going to tell you guys now that he and I do have a little history, not much, but he did reach out to me about three years, 2 months ago. It was a little over 3 years ago. He sent me an encouraging email. I was under attack. You guys know I had just as many trolls when I started this channel as I had people listening to me. And I was under a vehement attack. And he sent me a very short email with a letter of encouragement, just telling me, hey, man, keep doing what you're doing. He appeared in the comment section a couple times, sent me 3 silver coins and a copy of his book. And because the first chapter is the history of silver, you know, I got suckered into that. Any history book I'm going to read. It's very compelling material. A lot of it goes beyond once you get past page 60. This is beyond me. I don't really understand the markets. I'm not a market guy, but we do have some really interesting things, commonalities. And I know after about 3 or 4 days, a lot of people are going to be watching this video. So I want to introduce David. I would like to think he's a personal friend. We've communicated probably 4 times in emails over these 3 years, and he's been doing his thing and I've been doing mine. And I was very impressed 4 months ago with a video, an interview. And I believe it was in investment news. He's going to correct me. It was investment news, investing news, or in something like that. And the host was commenting on his 2023 predictions about what was going to happen with the silver and gold markets for 2024. And she was reviewing that, and she had said, man, he was right on the money. 2024 unfolded almost exactly the way that David had predicted. So we're going to talk about some things like that today, because you guys know I've been very, very specific about 2025, and that in the calendrics, it's in the field, that we have events from 1933 and 34 that are and 1971 and 74 that look like they are mirrored in different ways according to what's going on now. I'm talking about, you guys know, I'm real big on these presidential decrees. These I can't even believe I can't even think about what they're called. Oh, the executive orders. These Caesar-like, it's a bypass of the legislature, bypass of the judiciary. It's when the executive branch just becomes a Caesar. It's no longer law. It's no longer anything. There's no checks and balances here. And I'm a critic to that, especially when it comes to what happened in 1933, 1971, 1974. They all seem to be unfolding again in 2025. And I want to introduce David. Let me get this intro video out of my studio. Let David come in here and introduce himself. How you doing, David?
Oh, I'm doing well, Jason, and thanks for inviting me on board. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a little personal information real quick. When you first reached out to me, I was blown away. I mean, not because you're world famous or anything like that. I was blown away because I'm very well read in prison. And sometimes when I was in prison, I didn't have access to all the materials that I wanted. So sometimes I had to read what was just available. And there's a lot of market guys that are in institutions. And some of those guys are following the markets. This is what they do. And they tell people on the outside what to do, how to move their money, what to invest in, and all that. And these guys, because they can't do anything in real time, they have to do things by letters or by phone calls in the evenings. They have to be on their game. They have to really know and understand these markets. And they used to fascinate me. But they had the stapled papers called the Morgan Report. And they used to pass these around. And so when you reached out to me, I was like, wow, what are the odds that I would actually meet this guy who has, I mean, you're pretty well read Now, I don't know if it's guys that are ordering your material on the outside and then photocopying it and sending it to them in packets in the prison. I don't know, but I just know that when I first reached out to you, I was like, "Wow, you're a familiar name to me." And the Morgan report is known widely in institutions, and that's basically where I was raised. So I just wanted to share that with you because I'd never told you that before in email.
Oh, that's news to me.
Yeah, it is interesting. There's a lot of financial gurus that are incarcerated, and you would be surprised how successful some of these guys are. I mean, they all have people on the outside that actually do the trades and the investments for them, but they've got nothing better to do but research the Wall Street Journal and all the little specialist journals. They don't have anything else better to do. So, oh, won't you introduce yourself with the history of how did you get into precious metals? I mean, you specialize in silver, but I know you write a lot about gold too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what got
Yeah, and
you
I
into
look at
gold?
I look at all the markets. Precious metals is my specialty. Kind of an interesting story, Jason. I've told this story several times, but hopefully it'll be new to your audience. I grew up in the country. I was born in San Francisco. My parents quickly moved down to San Diego County. My dad worked in the aircraft industry. He was working for Convair. You can look that up. It was an aerospace company way, way, way back. And I went through grade school in San Diego County, but we were way out in the sticks. And my dad put in an orchard, and my job was to water all those trees, the almond trees, grapefruit trees.
Oh
We
yeah,
had all kinds of different citrus fruits, oranges. And, as a 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kid, that 2 hours to take that hose and dump it in these great big wells and fill up the well and then move to the next tree seemed like to take forever. But that was my assignment. I had to keep my room clean. So I got 25 cents a week allowance for doing that. Well, being out in the country, there wasn't, you had to ride your bike pretty far to spend it. So I saved my quarters, saved my quarters, and saved my quarters. And one day I got this new quarter, and it was a Johnson slug. And my little 11-year-old brain said, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? All these quarters I've saved, probably a roll's worth, $10 worth, how many weeks that is, are all silver. And this one isn't. I don't know what it is, but I can tell looking at the side of it, it's not silver, it's copper and something. But none of the adults around me ever seemed to pay much attention to it. But quickly, Gresham's law took over, meaning good money and bad money. So the bad money stays in circulation, the good money disappears. So in those days, we had actual physical mechanical vending machines. So all the vending machine guys took all the silver dimes, quarters, and halves and dumped them into their own private stash, and then would fill up the machines with these Johnson slugs. So if you bought cigarettes and got change, you'd get, 2 new quarters instead of an old one. So that actually started me. Now, I didn't wake up, as an 11-year-old said, I'm going to get in the silver market and blah, 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 blah. But that was the impetus that got me worried. I'd say worried, but gave me some thinking about, well, what is money and why would they change it? Why would you go from silver to something else, right? And so then I started, like you, self-motivator, looking into money. I was fascinated by it. I asked my dad, like, well, how do you put up these skyscrapers that are in downtown San Diego? And, I really didn't give me much of an answer. And, the only thing I knew was what you saved up enough money, then you bought what you wanted to buy. But how do you save for a bank building or, how do you do that? And so I started looking into it on my own, discovered early on, and by the time I was probably 15, 16, how the banking system worked, realized from, the studies that I'd done, it was pretty fraudulent. These people are getting something for nothing. And how does that work? And we're forced to use it, and on it goes. So that's kind of the wake-up call, Jason. It was one of those random events that I paid attention to that many other people probably just ignored.
you just described what was a capital crime in the 12th, 13th, and 14th century. The legislation in Europe back then was coin clipping. But what you just described about changing out the quarters by the vending machine operators and all that, that's the same thing. It's this got people killed because back then the coin clipping was when they took the silver and they shaved off the edges just a little bit, took a little bit of silver shavings, and when you do that to thousands of coins that come through your hand, that's a considerable amount of silver that you save on a weekly or monthly basis. But that is pretty interesting. I have something that's I'm really interested to know, how is it even possible with the IT and the tech industry requiring, especially the military industrial complex, requiring so much silver for their electronics, especially for the stealth technology, the EMP proof technology. How in the hell do we have enough silver to provide those industries and yet still have bullion out here?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jason. And I don't have an exact answer, but we have mined a huge amount of silver from roughly 2005 till now. The last 20 years, if you look at the amount of silver that's brought above surface, it is overwhelming relative to all the silver that's been mined from time immemorial. So
Okay,
once,
well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. I didn't know that new silver mining was that substantive. I had
yeah,
no idea.
yeah, we were basically running out. We were using the above ground stockpile from 1990 to 2005. We had roughly 2 billion ounces in investment form. And that went off at an average rate of 100 million ounces off the stockpile for 15 consecutive years. So we were down from 2 billion ounces above ground to less than a half a billion in 2005. But we really started to catch, we need more metal with the Chinese build out. When they did their quote unquote industrial revolution, they needed everything: concrete, copper, silver, you name it. And the mining business got busy and they really started digging deep and started producing a lot of mineral wealth across the board, not just precious metals. But that's something that, again, it was a great question because, a lot of people get the misimpression that it's a steady eddy and we only mine so much. In fact, my predecessor, Jerome Smith, predicted $200 silver in 1995. And he wrote that in like 1985. And the greatest mistake he made was that the amount of silver brought forward for 60 consecutive years was 350 million ounces of silver every year. And that was the exact number for 60 consecutive years. So he made this supposition that the next 10 years we'd bring 350 million ounces of silver above ground. And if that were true, we probably would have seen $200 silver in 1995. But as soon as the ink dried on the book, as a metaphor, we had a new technology in the mining industry, and the mining industry took off. We started mining a lot more silver. So I was very it took me a long time to figure out what he did wrong, because those books were very popular at their time, and no one could figure out, or very few could figure out, well, what happened. And I was given that question at a conference. The guy was kind of pushing my buttons a little bit, like, "Well, we've heard this stuff, and why?" And I gave him the answer, and the guy fell over because I have asked 6
Yeah,
different people on this stage what happened, and he's the only one that ever gave me an answer.
yeah. It's so that's interesting that you say we continually mine this. It's almost as if Earth is an inexhaustible supply. It's this has nothing to do with silver or anything, but I have this theory that the surface of our world undergoes these resets, and these resets are all linked to intense high activity volcanism. And it's widely known that volcanism does two things. One, it pushes metals and ores to the surface. And two, volcanism also creates different atmospheric conditions. So I'm wondering how long this process has been going on for all these metals to be so accessible, within the range of being, for us to be able to mine them. They have to be in a certain range for us to mine them. It's really interesting. It's just I don't know. That really interests me. So what do you think about um 1933? This is a fear I have about hoarding silver. I'm just going to put it out there. I know a lot of people love to collect silver and all that, and I have some silver. I don't really have a lot, but I have probably more than most, except for the avid collectors. My fear is another scam like in 1933 when they criminalized possession of bullion to induce you to turn it in to get silver certificates that the very next year, once they had all the public's bullion, they significantly spiked the price of the silver. So the certificate now, which was redeemable, wasn't redeemable for anything of the current value of the ore, which is what it should have been, because they devalued the certificate, but the ore was now. You understand what I'm talking about? 1933 and 34. Yeah,
Yes.
once they got the public, they passed a law. Everybody turned their silver in, and it was to the Federal Reserve. And then the U.S. Treasury issued these silver certificates. And then the very following year, they created a new law once they secured all this bullion, and they significantly increased the price of silver. But now the government has it, and you could only redeem what your certificate was worth. And then for those who held on to the certificates until the 50s, I believe sometime in the 1960s, they passed new legislation that devalued the silver certificate. So these people just lost. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, the silver certificates were valid through 1968, but the coinage left, as you remember, in 1965. And yeah, a lot of people are very concerned about the gold, quote unquote, confiscation in the 30s under the Roosevelt, but they also took care of the silver market, as you outlined. And most people aren't even aware of that. And then they demonetized silver way back in 1873, as I point out in my book. But you're right. This is I'll put on my hat. I don't have it handy here, but imagine my tinfoil going on.
Yeah.
And I was told by a very good source, because I'm well connected, but not infinitely connected. I don't know anybody that works under the great big eyeball. I probably know some of them, but not on a personal basis. Anyway, the point being, Jason, simply this: the U.S. government cares a lot more about the silver market than do the gold market. Now, you would think the opposite would be true, because gold's still a very major part in the central bank system, even though they don't tout it on national TV or the financial channels. They all buy gold all the time, moving gold from the west to the east. But silver is imperative, essential. You can't do anything without silver in a technological world. We couldn't be having this conversation over the net without silver. If gold went away, there wouldn't really be a big change in the world. But if silver went away, the world would disappear. And so it makes sense to me that the government cares more about silver than they do gold, but they're never going to state that in a public domain.
Right, right. So the change, though, in 1933, no one was expecting that. We were climbing out of the Great Depression, and it wasn't done by the proper channels. Congress didn't discuss it. It wasn't anything that was a result of a judicial decision. It was a simple executive order signed by a president, and 1 minute later it became law, and all of a sudden it was illegal to own silver. So that's my problem with the whole situation. Is I don't want to be put into that situation. I don't want to be put into the situation of them criminalizing owning silver and precious metals, and then 1 or 2 years later undoing it. But they've already got my medal. They've already got my medal and give me a almost worthless certificate. I would go ahead and just be who I am by nature. I'm a rebel. I'm just not going to turn it in. I'm just not going to turn it in.
That's one thing about the confiscations, if you call them that, is not as much metal was turned in as a lot of people think. I indirectly spoke with John Exter. He was long deceased, but his son got a hold of me by email one time, and he verified for me what I got through hearsay, that a lot of people just kept their mouths shut. It was very common to take whatever gold you had, put it in a coffee can, seal it up, and bury it out in front of the window where your mom did the dishes. So she had her eyeball on that area all the time.
Wow.
Basically. And so there are a lot of people that just kept their mouths shut and didn't turn it in. And I think that, again, would be the case here. But the idea about confiscating silver is something that most people don't consider, because the monetary value is so underappreciated that it wouldn't make much sense for the government to confiscate silver on a monetary basis. It doesn't. But on a strategic basis, to keep those missiles flying, it does. Totally important, as I just outlined. So it's not the quote unquote value monetarily, it's the value to the military industrial complex where they come in. In fact, if we got to that point, and I've thought about this, as you would imagine, that what would they do? And they probably overbid. So, like saying, hey, here's the silver certificate at current value and then devalue, they might say, okay, spot price is $100 an ounce. We're going to give you 120 and no tax, no capital gains. Just turn it in. You've got 30 days to do so. Help the war effort. Come on board one, come all, whatever. And I really think that would be more of the approach. Now, well, David, you're super bullish silver and you're this and that. Well, no, I also have studied the psychology of money for a lot of years, Jason. And it's like, well, how would you motivate somebody to turn their silver in when last time they didn't want to? Well, you'd overpay, quote unquote, and you'd incentivize them. There wouldn't be any strings attached. I'm not going to give you a W-9 or whatever it is. I'm just going to say, hey, turn it in. You got this window of opportunity, no questions asked, and we need the silver for, whatever purpose.
Yeah. I could see the incentive being like a massive tax write-off or a pass on on an IRS payment for a year or whatever. I can see an incentive like that going out. I don't know. I really don't know anything about the IRS other than we have to pay them and that they're under a lot of scrutiny right now. So yeah, I really don't know much about it, but I do know that 1933 would have been an eye opener for someone who's going to collect silver today. However, you did just counter that with an interesting argument that Americans are going to be American. We are rebels by nature, and so if a lot of people, it's almost like the whole COVID deal. You weren't absolutely forced. No one kicked your door in and come in and forced you to participate in the pharmaceutical, solution. But still, there were many people wwho volunteered for it. And so that does sound good. So in 1971, we also have a lot of activity in 1971 that mirrors conditions, and we have a president that really likes these executive orders. And can you tell us a little bit about was it called the Nixon scare or the Nixon what was it? There's a term.
Well, the most common term is that Nixon closed the gold window.
Yeah, the Nixon shock. That's what it was called. The Nixon shock when he stopped foreign governments from exchanging their U.S. dollars for gold. He did the same thing Trump just did. Trump's calling it tariffs. Right. But Nixon charged like 10 or 12% surcharge on all foreign governments that were trying to sell their products in America. I see a lot of parallels between what Nixon did, even though he was an unpopular president or has been painted with the brush of unpopularity. I see a lot of things that Trump's doing, the same thing Nixon did, and I'm wondering if it's going to produce the same result.
I'm going to take a question. I'm going to digress a bit, Jason. I think it'll be a better foundational look. So if you go back to 33 with Roosevelt, what he did was he made gold illegal for Americans, but internationally it was still the main settlement. So internationally, gold settled all trades.
Okay.
And then in 1971, and then in 33, the Depression was rampant across the country, but some of the economic geniuses around the White House decided that they would make things better by passing what's called the Smoot-Hartley Act. The Smoot-Hartley Act was a series of tariffs on foreign nations. And that is, as I've studied and many agree with me, that basically pushed the Depression on a worldwide basis. So instead of making it better for America, it made it worse for everyone. So I wanted to get that out in front.
Okay.
After that, Nixon came in and closed the gold window August 15th, 1971, and said that we will no longer redeem the U.S. dollar in gold, period. End of statement. Temporarily was the word he used. And so that made it illegal to basically trade in gold. And that carried on for several years. And then James Blanchard III, who runs he's deceased now, but the New Orleans Gold Conference, which is the last time I spoke in public. It's been years since I've been on stage, but got back up there for that anniversary. He was instrumental in bringing gold back to the American public, where Americans were allowed to own gold. he had a private plane fly one of these banners behind it saying legalize gold.
That
And
was
that
like
was,
1974.
yeah, it was in that range. And he had a
Yeah.
TV ad he produced himself or had produced that said, and he pulled up a couple ounces of gold and said, "What? Put me in jail. Why is it illegal for me to own this?" Purportedly, and it's Wikipedia is my source, so you don't have to. I'll just cite it. I'm not saying it's right, but it's also verifies what I've read that President Ford, after he kicked Nixon out and pardoned him, said, "Hey, why aren't we allowed to own gold?" And that under his administration, they changed the law where Americans could own the gold again. So it
Yeah.
came full circle where it was illegal to own it, and then illegal
Yeah.
to own it internationally or settle with it internationally. We're going to settle in paper only, like you said about the silver certificates. Here's these paper dollar certificates. That's all you
Right.
get paid in. And now Americans can own gold again starting about 74.
Yeah, I do have the reason I knew it was 1974 because that guy that influenced all that, I knew it was 1974 because Gerald Ford in 1974 signed that executive order. I've researched executive orders, so I didn't know much about Gerald Ford. I didn't know much about Nixon, but the history of executive orders is something I have looked into because um, we're not going to go tinfoil hat in this episode, but I have a long list of really intriguing international intrigues and how they've developed in the United States, not through legislation, not through congressional acts, not through lobbying, but through executive orders, which become law the very as soon as they're signed, and they bypass all our protections, all our constitutional, all our amendment protections. Yeah, they're it's straight dictatorship stuff, but there's been some good done with them, but they're a subject of interest of mine. So I just knew that about 1974.
Yeah, I really can't add to. I was going to add on to it, but you finished it perfectly. I mean, it's very upsetting to me as well, at least from a philosophical perspective, because we're supposed to have this checks and balances: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And if you just edict it by the stroke of a pen, you're a dictator, and you use the
Yeah,
word, and that's the proper word. And yet, no one really throws up their. I mean, some of us throw up our hands, but the general public, in my opinion, is so sleepy they don't really pay much attention to it, or they're swayed one color or the other. Is our team's going to win, rah rah rah. And of course, I've
right.
disengaged from that years and years and years ago. I don't even vote anymore. I don't like to encourage either side.
Yeah. It has gotten toxic. It's really become a circus since 2020. It is obviously a circus. The even mainstream media has made no secret of showing us how circus like it is. It's like a carny. It's a festival. It's crazy. So every single presidential election and everything around it's almost like bacchanalian. It's all some Dionysian affair. So, some weird, immoral, ritualistic parties. It's just crazy. It's all crazy. So so this leads us to an observation. So I don't study markets. I don't look at markets. I don't understand them. I don't have that type of knowledge. I study calendars and I study the events that are in the field every single year. So different calendars, it's a different year. It might be 2025, but it's not 2025 in the Hijra calendar. In the Roman Julian calendar, if we were to continue it up to 2025 in Anno Domini, it's a different year. And in the Egyptian Christian Copt calendar, it would be different, as well as the Indian Saka calendar. And I study what year it is in every single calendrical system that I follow in 2025. So I have charts that show what year it is for all these ancient calendrical systems, aligning with 2025. And it allows me to look into the field of the past, and I'm able to see what was going on in those different countries and empires in the year of 2025 of different ancient calendars. And because I have this wild theory, of course, people think I'm weird, but I have this wild theory that our world isn't what we think it is, and that it is a very tight mathematical structure. So when I'm researching these things, I'm not going to get into simulation theory and any of that in this video, but when I'm doing my type of research, I noticed last year, which allowed me to do a series of predictions videos about this year, 2025. And in those videos, without any evidence of the markets or the specialized information that you have, I don't even know what your predictions for 2025 are. But in my own, what I saw developing in the field for 2025 was an increase of the value of silver and gold. I don't know why, but I saw both silver and gold in 2025 raising in value. This is also in the field 1971. Holographically, 1971 is a mirror of 2025. And I've explained this to my community many times, how these cylindrical isometrics work. And in 1971, we had an increase in both silver and gold, over 20%, actually. So I'm just wondering, what is your take on 2025, the present politics, anything that you see in the field that could develop in the near future that would increase silver and gold even more than it was at its thresholds at the very end of 2024?
Yes, our January forecast issue, I covered a lot of things. One of them was, AI in the governmental system with this Doge thing. We can come back to that, but get specifically, I saw gold and silver doing at least as well as they did in 2024. And as you said earlier on INN, the Investing News Network, where I was interviewed by Charlotte McLeod, I gave my predictions.
That's who it was. That's who it was. That's right.
And they were pretty accurate. I see it doing at least that well this year due to many, many factors, but basically gold is a barometer of the uncertainty in the financial system. So the more uncertain the future financial wherewithal on a individual, state, government, worldwide level, the more you're going to see gold move relative to other commodities. And that's what I see for 2025. More contraction, more infighting, lower foodstuffs due to climates and fighting, and more nationalism coming to the fore, because all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, we're growing enough wheat in Ukraine for Europe, but now due to the war, they're not growing as much. We're going to keep what we have, and we're not going to export as much. Wait a minute, any surplus to export? No, we don't. And so you get into those kind of battles. It's kind of getting more and more selfish or nationalistic rather than this global empire type of situation. So I saw a 30% increase in both metals, round numbers, last year. I see somewhere in a 40% range this year as a minimum. And depending on, my overused phraseology, a black swan or a black swan hitting a black swan, we could see a spike that would take both those markets higher because of, let's say, a failure to deliver. Right now, there's a lot of consternation around the proposed tariffs applying to precious metals and silver and gold moving from the London market into the New York market. And this has caused a lot of people in my field to be very concerned about how much is left in the London market. Does the paper receipt match the amount of physical outlay? And the answer is guaranteed no. I mean, it's always been that way on a fiat system. Even under a gold standard, if you issue more receipts than there are gold, then you have a problem. And that's what's always happened on a gold standard. It isn't gold's fault. People say, well, gold doesn't work. Gold's an inherent element on the periodic chart. It can't think. It's man that corrupts it. And by issuing more receipts than there are gold, doing fractional reserve banking, in other words, you have distorted the system and you started a lie. You're not telling the truth. This receipt represents 1 ounce of gold. Well, if there's 2 receipts for the same ounce of gold, what happens? Eventually the truth comes out.
Okay. I see a comment. Russell Patrick, I don't know if you're asking my mods or myself. Did you contact me about Bitcoin? Look, everybody in my community knows I will never contact you personally. It's just not going to happen. I email many people because we have relationships like that, but and none of them would ever ask me if I contacted them about Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm not with all that. I don't even delve into cryptocurrencies, which is a really good point. David, do you foresee like what would happen to silver if there was the equivalent to a Sam Bankman-Fried conspiracy, and the equivalent of that type of conspiracy that affected the silver? Or how about was it the Hunt brothers in like 1979, 1988, 1981, somewhere around there, the Hunt brothers, and what they had done that spiked the silver? Is there some type of like highly localized event that could affect the whole silver market. You know, something like, I mean, no one saw the Sam Bankman-Fried deal coming until it was too late.
There are a few. One would be, as I suggested a moment ago, that if the LBMA, the London market, could not deliver gold and or silver in a timely manner, that would disrupt the market. And that would definitely get the community at large, from the small silver stacker to an international bullion bank, concerned. And is that possible? And I would say, yeah, it is possible. Is it probable? No. Is it possible? Yes. That would be one. Another one on the crypto side would be uh, a lot of different things, but there are asset-backed cryptocurrencies, gold and silver-backed cryptocurrencies. Some of these turn out to be fractional reserve type, where there isn't the metal backing the unit, the token as expressed. That could cause a problem, but that would be a very small subset. That would be a very small part of the market. It's the big market, like the London market failing, or the New York market failing, or delaying, where the delivery for the metal is put off. And that's what's happening now, Jason, is that a normal delivery is a couple of weeks. Right now, the London's market should give us 4 to 8 weeks. Well, that only causes more problems, because people that were sitting on their gold in London for the last 50 years say, you know what, if XYZ country can't get their gold in less than 2 months, I'm going to ask for mine back. So that puts more pressure on the market, because what
Right.
used to be static and, oh, I accept the fact that you're storing it for me, now that comes into question. Do you really have what you say you're storing for me? I don't trust you. Send it back to me.
Yeah,
And so,
that's the macro level banking. If we translate that to the micro, it's just like me and everybody in my small little community going to the only bank we have in town, Wells Fargo, and all of us wanting our money at the same time because somebody else didn't get theirs. I get it.
exactly,
I get
precisely.
it.
Yeah.
So, I know in 2010 we had a micro crash in the economy. I think is 2010 the one that affected the housing markets, Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac and all that.
Yeah, it was 2008 through 2010.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, 2010 there was like a micro crash and all that, but it was followed in 2011 by a massive increase in the value of silver. So I'm also predicting, David, for this year, and I've provided those data sets by which I derive this conclusion in my 2025 predictions video. I show them so everybody can follow my logic. But to me, I'm seeing a micro crash. In a micro crash, we've only had 3 or 4 of them in American history. The first one was in the 1800s, but it's a crash that comes with almost no precedent, no warning. It's a super deep dive, huge transference of wealth. But by the end of the day, it restabilizes, and the economy actually gets empowered after that. We saw in 2010, we saw though after following 2010, we saw a massive increase in the value of silver. I don't know how long that increase lasted. I haven't really looked that deep. But do you foresee that 2025 could result in some type of market instability that would actually boost the value of silver?
Wow, what a great sequence. And I did actually watch your 2025. I need to watch it again. But going back to the peak of the last day of April, early May 2011, when silver peaked near 50. If we go to the bottom of the crash, what everyone still refers to as a financial crisis, even in the mainstream press, they'll use that word. We saw that silver went from 21 down below 9. So it lost more than 50% of its value. And gold did something in a similar way, but not percentage wise, but it dipped quite a bit. From that bottom, that was very temporary, like you're outlining here, it started up. Silver went from roughly 9 to 50, it went up 550% from 2008 to 2011. It took about 3 years. So the way I heard your question is that this could be the year where we get that place where we start to get a perhaps a multi-month rise in the price of silver, and people realign themselves in precious metals as being the money of last resort, a safe haven, something I can trust, a way to mitigate a crypto crisis, food problems, whatever. There's a number of things that happen where when you're built on a system that there is absolutely no trust. I mean, we all teach our kids, you cannot get something for nothing. You got to work for a living or whatever. And yet the whole system on a global basis is based on getting something. You're my banker, you're the Federal Reserve, and you type some numbers into a computer and it instantly becomes valuable. And then the money center banks that are in on the scam get fees for selling that to money center banks. And we, the people, are on the hook to pay the interest on it by our labor. That's a pretty good game if you could get it. Now, if you and I did that, we'd be, I've never been to prison. I've been to jail, but I'm trying not to digress or laugh because I respect you a great deal. You know that. But, most people would be incarcerated, but yet it's legal it's a monopoly that's legalized by government, and the government had the guns to protect that unique position. And then, of course, the United States is the one and only that has the reserve currency of the world. So if I talked too far, droned on, but the point is, look, we're creating a system where some people get something for nothing, and yet the rest of us are required to put our labor into it to pay the interest on that debt created from nothing.
So I want to bring to your attention a very difficult to find video, and I challenge anybody that's listening right now to find this video and provide the link, because I watched the video and then lost it. I don't believe I saw it on YouTube. I believe it was on BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble. I was watching a video and then I went back to go get it, and the video had been terminated. But it was an interview by Condoleezza Rice. Somebody was asking Condoleezza Rice about the future economy of the United States. And when she was Secretary of State, and it's an old video, and she point blank laughed and says, the United States already has a backup economy. We're just waiting for the world banks to F up. He says, in one day, we will uncap every oil well that we've capped since the 1910s, and we're sitting on the world's wealth right now. We're just waiting to take over the system. When they show us they can no longer run everything, we're going to offer the new system, and it's going to be a new U.S. petro-backed dollar, and we're going to bankrupt the Middle East. And she said this, and it was in this interview, and I was so shocked, I even told my community. On YouTube, I told everybody about this Condoleezza Rice video I had just watched about the United States having a backup plan for world banks to collapse and then just overnight switch over to a U.S. oil-backed deal. I forgot all the details, but it was so amazing how she just fell out and she was laughing about it like, man, we're never going broke. He says, this is all an illusion, and the United States is making big moves in the future for this. She said this a long time ago. I can't find the video, but I know somebody can find it because other people in the chat were saying, yeah, I saw that video too. I just can't find it anymore. I thought it was very interesting that she was so confident that there was already a backup plan for a whole new economy, and that a crashed economy is in the plans, but it's by design.
Yeah, as Eleanor Roosevelt once said, very little happens in politics by accident.
Oh yeah, man. I know it. So what do you think about, so with 2010, we have, we're creatures of pattern recognition. We can often see patterns that are there that aren't necessarily connected. So I'm hyper vigilant about trying to see more in the field than is actually there. But I can't help but notice 2010 was followed by an increase in the silver prices. But what about COVID in 2020? In 2020, we have everybody in the world locked down. Finances are almost shut down. People are given stimulus packages. There's no travel. Whole cities around the world were locked down. And yet gold prices surged out the roof in 2020 and 2021. How do you explain
that? Again, reaching out for a safe haven or something you can trust. Basically, when the COVID hit in March of 2020, the gold-silver ratio went to an all-time high, meaning it took more ounces of silver to buy an ounce of gold than it ever had in recorded history. It went to over 125 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. Luckily, Jason, and I've said this publicly before, I bought silver within about a few days of that spike. So I did a very good purchase at that time.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
This is my specialty. So, and then from that point, as you said, silver and gold did quite well. And it again goes back to, what do you trust? You know, what do you trust as a final means of payment? The idea being, you know, the ownership theory of money is like all those books behind you have value. Now they might have more value to you because you know what's in them or how rare they are than they would to me. But at some point, I might want one of your books. Maybe you have a duplicate, you know, and say, David, I want this for this book. Well, something that I value is silver coins. So, well, I'll take some silver coins. So now we negotiate where you say,
Right.
okay, I'll let you have this book for, you know, 8 ounces of silver, David. And because 8 ounces of silver is more valuable to you than the book, and the book is more valuable to me than the 8 ounces. So we're both in a win-win situation under a free market economy where we're both benefiting from that transaction. But we
Yeah.
are in a final payment mode. You got something of value for the book, and I
Right.
got something of value for the silver. That's gone away. What we do
Yeah.
now is I give you a receipt that I say, hey, I'm going to give you something of value in the future. Give me your book. And you say, okay. But the whole system is built on that. It's built
It's
on
fiat.
thin
Yeah,
air.
you described the fiat system. It's they give us paper, they give us silver certificates that are almost worthless. I get it. It's speaking of books, guys, this is David Morgan's book. Who is Chris Marchese?
Here's my understudy. Chris Marchese has been with me. He still works with me part-time. Finance guy, very smart, especially on the mining stocks, which is what we talk about in the Morgan report, as well as, you know, the economic macro picture and all that's going on under the surface and above the surface. And he studied in Australia for part of his master's program. Very well studied, and he definitely helped me with the research on that book.
Well, it's the book. The book is packed. A lot of it's beyond me, which is saying something because, you know, I kind of like the minutia, but I've just never really been interested in markets. There's a lot in this. I was interested in the first chapter because it's the history of silver. You know, but this goes far beyond. This is something that somebody who wants to invest in silver is going to really need. You're going to need this material. This is the type of material for someone who's going to rely on that as their I think you had a term for it. One of your videos, safe haven asset. Was that your?
Sure, safe haven, or it's a good foundation. I felt the best book on silver in modern times is called The Silver Bonanza, written by a friend of mine called Franklin Sanders, who lives in Tennessee, and he wrote that book with James Blanchard, I mentioned early on, that did the New Orleans Gold Show and was instrumental in bringing gold to the public. We already talked about that briefly. So that was the best book, but I looked at it and I felt it needed to be updated, especially with all the derivatives and all the new ways to enter the silver market in the paper realm. And so I basically started off with a blank piece of paper, said, I don't know anything about the silver market. Where do I start? And Chris and I started working back and forth on the book, and took a lot of time, as you know, because you've written several. I know you've written several. I have some of your books, by the way, and and got to the final place, and then went and got my editor and said, hey, you know, let's make this thing grammatically correct. And then what's great about Julie is she's very wonderful, but she's no BS. And if she didn't understand something, then I got that feedback, which is what you want. It's
Right.
not to talk over anyone's head. It's try to educate, right? So she said, I don't understand this. This doesn't make any sense to me. That's great feedback. Because then you get to come back and rewrite it in a manner and send it to her and say, hey, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, great. And you move forward. So it's quite a process, as you well know, Jason. But as a love affair, so to speak, I felt it was my duty, if I am who I say I am. Don't tell me, show me. Well, you just held up the show me part.
Right. Yeah, I knew a guy that I forgot. He took me and a friend out to eat one time, and he really impressed me because this is after Archaics was already rolling, and he just wanted to meet and talk. And we met him for lunch. I think it was Big John and I can't remember who was with us, but when it was time to go, you know, he insisted to pay for the lunch. I told him anytime somebody invites me out to eat or something, I'll make the offer. You know, I can pay my own way. I can pay Big John, but they always want to pay, and that's fine. And he left a silver piece on the table for the waitress, and I saw that, and he says, yeah. He says it's just really a gimmick. I can't remember who this guy was. This is a couple years ago, but it impressed me. He said he bought silver only to tip. He says, you know what? Sometimes I'm entertaining people. Sometimes I'm eating alone. It doesn't matter. It says I'll always give the exact same thing. This is my tip for whatever event I'm involved in. This is my tip. If it's super big, extravagant or something, I'll give them two. But the waitresses always get a real trip out of getting a silver coin. Well, I think back then it was worth $21, $22, something like that. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So I did a video. I don't know if you saw it, but I did a video about Hurricane Beryl. And I just wanted to show my community how fast our infrastructure can literally collapse.
Yeah.
In the Houston area, the very next day after Hurricane Beryl, there were miles-long vehicle lines to gas stations. Many gas stations were just completely shut down. So their tanks were already empty. This is the very next day. And on YouTube, I showed I'm driving around. I've got my van camera aimed at the side of the road, and I'm just talking as I'm showing these miles long vehicles, just lines. If that's one day, so I can imagine a scenario where I pull out my little safe and I've got about 70 something little silver coins. Those are going to become very, very valuable, at least temporarily,
right?
Because there's going to come a time where you hit saturation point when even the community realizes if infrastructure isn't brought back fast and if it's going to be a prolonged experience, I believe that silver will be devalued pretty fast because no one's going to want to take it. You can't eat it.
Right.
But if there's this is a worst case scenario. If it's going to take like total systemic collapse in the United States and it goes on protracted for weeks or even months, yeah, there's going to be a time in that period where nobody local is going to want your silver anymore. But it's going to take weeks to get to that point before people realize it's not tender that they can do anything with. We have to wait for the infrastructure to come back up. So I think silver is excellent because the likelihood of a total systemic collapse is pretty low. Most of the time, it's going to be these highly localized destructions like Hurricane Beryl. It took us about a week and a half in the Houston area for things to get normal again.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Jason. I mean, the book or the movie, The Road, does exactly that, but that's systemic throughout the entire nation or world. And in that case, food is your best resource, no doubt.
I haven't seen that one. So yeah, the reason I think the silver would be good is because as soon as there's some type of disaster, the silver is excellent because people are going to want to take it and you can stack up on your supplies, you can stack up on your food, your water, you can get all that stuff out before people realize after a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks that, damn, we're not going to be able to do anything with this silver right now because we have to wait for government to put things back together for anybody to even take the silver. So yeah, I think it's excellent for a temporary solution to stack up everything you need, when you need it. I'm just looking at the chat, see if anybody's got any questions for David. It's a busy man. If you better get your questions out now. We'll take about 3 or 4 questions, David.
I'm ready when you're ready.
I'm about to start I haven't even announced it, so I'll go ahead and announce it now while you're here. I'm about to do something very unique. I get over 500,000 views every 28 days. Archaics.com is almost 400,000 views, and it's in the top. GoDaddy in the GoDaddy analytics show that Archaics.com is in the top 10% traffic sites in the entire GoDaddy universe. And I don't have any sponsors. I don't have any ads on my channel, except for the 4 or 5 videos that YouTube hijacked because somebody showed like movie clips in those videos. If I have a podcaster on, like I've had 2 different people do Matrix video clips, and I got hit for both of those. So anytime that there's a copyright issue, YouTube hijacks the whole video and just spams it with a bunch of ads. So out of 870 something videos, I only have 5 videos that have been hijacked. but I'm about to do something new. And I've turned down every offer from Fortune 500 companies and all these big companies trying to put ads on my channel and trying to sponsor. And I'm going to do something different, David. I'm about to do a video explaining what I'm going to do to my community, for my community. But I want to start doing little 20 and 30-second ads at the beginning of my videos that are only advertising my community's small business, like you, what you do, what services you provide, what's your website. It could be astrologers, wood makers. It could be people who make tapestries. I'm back. Sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah, that was I got. I'm so far out in the country. Normal Wi-Fi from building to building doesn't really work. So I have a little portable security device. It's encrypted, but it only works for this building. It doesn't go any further than that. And I forgot to put my battery charger on it.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I might get a good microphone, but I'm still a F up elsewhere. Yeah.
It's all right.
So what I was explaining is I'm gonna start doing these little 20 and 30-second ads that people are gonna send to me. I'm gonna put them in the beginning of my deal. Now, normal for the analytics, the high analytics that my channel has, it's normally $1,500 to $3,500 to do a company will pay you to do an ad for 30 seconds. I'm not doing anything like that. I want to create a network, like an errands network that's going to be posted on my website of everybody, what they're doing, what not just hobbies, services. I'd like you to be on there, but I just want to network everybody who's in the Archaics community, even other YouTube channels that want to get involved. And I think it's a whole lot better giving back to the community that way. It can't be free, because if it was free, then I get 50,000 people wanting to do it, and it would lock me down forever. But I'm sure the hell not going to charge anything, nowhere near what these companies are paying for these ads. I just want to do that because I know there's a lot of unique people that have unique messages. There's authors, astrologers, um, tradesmen, all kinds of people with specialist material, and I think it would be an excellent way for somebody to see themselves on a video that 100,000 people are going to see within 6 months. So anyway,
I'll encourage you to do that. And a thing that hit my mind is something I haven't explored much, but like medicinal herbs. I mean, I think I know your worldview a little bit, but I mean, I believe that there's a cure for damn near anything in nature. We
there
just have
is. Nature provides a cure for everything. Absolutely. Absolutely.
to no, I love it, and it's given back. A lot of things are paradoxes in the world, and one of them is to give away what you want. If you want to have more humor in your life, be funnier. It's this idea that we have to consume and take, and where everything is outside of us is opposite of the way it really works. It really starts from inside. We really have enough. And if we have that, we know where that power came from, and you can radiate it outward. You know, you can transmit something in a way that you are satisfied with this be here now, you know, right where you are without needing something outside of yourself to be in a good place, to be well, to be fit, whatever. So I
I
don't want to
agree.
get too philosophical, but that's the idea because we're taught that we don't have enough and we got to get all this stuff. And we get all this stuff and we're still upset and unsatisfied. We realize that's a lie. You know, we need to teach more about, you know, how to start from the beginning, that we are born with it and that we, you know, don't need all this external crap. But anyway, going back to what I'm trying to convey, I think it's really a great idea to let the little guy have a chance. Yeah, they got to pay something, like the other way you're inundated with freeloaders and, you know, I call time wasters and tire kickers, you know. We want to
Yeah.
get rid of those people, but people that have a sincere desire to help others, yeah, give them a platform. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. Hey, you see the question on the screen?
I do. Do I see the gold silver ratio going 1-to-1? Well, before it gets to 1-to-1, it's got to get back to 70-to-1. The average, this is an interesting discussion. I'll try to be somewhat brief. But if you go back to ancient times and you look at the gold silver ratio, again, for people that don't remember, the gold silver ratio is simply how many ounces of silver does it take to buy an ounce of gold? If you go back to ancient Egypt, it took ounces of gold to buy an ounce of silver. Silver was actually valued more in ancient Egypt than gold was. But moving forward from the 13th century on, where we have really good records, the gold silver ratio never got above 20. So that means that it took 20 ounces of silver to buy an ounce of gold or less. Many times it was the natural ratio, which is 12-to-1. So it took 12 ounces of silver. So do I think it'll go to 1-to-1? Well, first of all, it stayed 20-to-1 in the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th century. Think of how many hundreds of years that is. And the reason that it stayed at that level was because the market had one purpose for gold and one purpose for silver, and that is money, period.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the early 1900s where we started to see silver used for all the things we know now, and it's gone beyond, with being the best conductor, being the best reflector, and being the best transmitter. Conducts electricity better than any other element. And when electricity started to come into force, silver had another use. And it's gone on and on from there. The most used element on the periodic table is silver from an elemental perspective. From a commodity perspective, nothing beats oil. Oil is by far the most used commodity, but the second most used commodity is silver. So
Wow.
I don't see it
didn't know
going.
that.
Yeah, I don't see it going to 1-to-1, but I see it going. The average in the last 100 years is somewhere around the 33, 35 level. So I see it going to at least that, which would mean at this point silver would outperform gold on a percentage basis about triple. So $1,000 in gold, if it made you 2,000, would make you 6,000 in silver. But 1-to-1, I don't think it'll get to there. I have written. I'll again go back to "Don't Show Me, Tell Me." I have put in writing in the early article called "Engineering the Price of Gold." I talked about how the gold price is derived, and I moved on to how to derive the silver price. And in that article, I said it could get to 10-to-1. So rather than 90 ounces of silver to buy an ounce of gold like we have today, it would take 1/9 that amount, or only 10 ounces of silver to buy an ounce. I do see it coming down. I don't think it's going to be at these high levels. I think it will be much, much lower than it is.
See, I got another question from Corin at the bottom of the screen.
Please ask about government paying our debt regarding the Emergency Banking Act of 1933. I'm not sure. I'd have to have a little more information on what they're really asking. I mean, the bankruptcy of 1933, there's a lot of, information and misinformation regarding conducting of the bankruptcy of the United States from that point forward. And some of it's true and some of it isn't. I haven't looked at it in a while.
Okay.
Where's the best place to purchase silver? Online pawn shops. Best place to buy it is probably from another person that wants to sell it, because they're going to sell it to you at spot with no markup.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is, if you don't know the person, how do you do it? But you can just use some common sense. I mean, go to a coffee shop, have a friend with you, check them out. If it looks like shady, walk away. But most, I'm a big believer that, we're all imperfect humans, but most people are good. I still believe that. You put an ad in the paper. But if you're going to buy it online, that's fine. They're very competitive online. Type into an engine, 10 Rules of Silver Investing by David Morgan. That's a public service, and I'm proud to give it for everybody for free. It'll keep you from making a rookie mistake.
Cool.
And one of the things it teaches is start small. So if you're going to put half your life savings in silver, which I don't recommend, but if you're going to put a big whack into the metals, don't do it instantly. Start small. Take 1/10 or 1/20th of that amount. Go to a pawn shop or go to a local dealer or buy it online and make a purchase. See how long it takes, how it was packaged, how good of customer service did you get? Did you have to sign for it? All these things. And once you've made that purchase, then you can move up from there. The biggest mistake made by metals investors are these rookie mistakes where they get very excited. They buy too much or at the wrong kind or at the wrong time. Or some of these dealers are unscrupulous, Jason. They will mark up coins that are not rare coins as semi-rare coins and charge a huge premium. And you don't know any better. You don't know any better. And this happens more often than I like to report. So just use some common sense. But the best place is really someone that's wanting to sell. You will not have to pay a premium. You can buy it basically for melt value or close to
it. Oh, I got one more question at the bottom.
Do you see circulated silver coins increase in value for 2025? Yes, I answered that earlier. I see about a 30% increase. So if we go from the high of last year around 32 and you take 30% of 30, you're looking at about $9, running up to 10. So I said I saw $40 silver in 2025. I'll stick by that. I think we'll see that. Whether it'll stay there or not, I don't know. There's a lot of management of the money system because the powers that be want to continue that game that we talked about, where they really get something for nothing and have control. The reason I really got into money was that it transcends everything, Jason. It transcends religion, it transcends national origin, transcends sexual orientation, nationality, all these beliefs, because we all need money to survive. And that means that people that don't have any worry about getting enough, and people that have a lot worry about losing it. It really pervades our consciousness in a pervasive way because it's dishonest. And my big picture is freedom, bringing us back to freedom, and free money and free people go hand in hand. And I think that's important. That's why I did the documentary. If you don't mind, let me plug it here for a second. And that is silversunrise.tv. And if you go to that URL, silversunrise.tv, you'll see some of the trailers made about the stress and fear and control that money have over our lives. And I'm taking a look on a spiritual aspect, kind of not even I want to put myself in your league, Jason. I know how much work you've done and your expertise. But from my perspective, it's taking a different slant on the money problem. And that comes back to what we were talking about a moment ago, where it's really what's in our hearts and our heads, and working together as a community for the betterment of each other, more of a cooperation and a competitive atmosphere. I'm for competition. I'm a competitive guy, but there's a time and place for competitiveness, and there's a time and a place for cooperation. When the whole community's blown down by a hurricane, we've got to cooperate, man. I got water, you don't. You're stronger than me. You help me rebuild, and that's how we work together to make a better community overall. So that's kind of the slant on the movie silversunrise.tv. And if I could be so bold as to ask you, Jason, and I know you don't have a lot of free time to take a look at some of those trailers, I should have the documentary out within about 3 to 6 months. If you take your time to watch it over the weekend, maybe we could have a private chat, because I like to come back and get not only your take on it, but what you think I could do to make it better even the next time, or what points you gleaned from it, and what points I maybe didn't do as good a job as I wanted to. But
you have You have something to review right now, or are you talking about in the
Yeah,
future?
I've got trailers you can review, but I won't give you the B-roll. Not that I don't trust you, but
Oh, okay.
someone could snatch it on the web unless I said it. Man,
Oh,
I
I
can
get
maybe
no.
send it on a stick to you or something.
I totally get it. I totally get it. I believe me. I got sensitive software and video content. Yeah, I believe me. I get it.
But there are trailers. There's several up there. I've got the Creature from Jekyll Island author, Jared Griffin. He's in the movie. The guy
Yeah.
that did the two Thrive movies, Thrive 1 and Thrive 2, Foster Gamble, he's interviewed in the movie. The best constitutional lawyer, Edward Vieira, who wrote Pieces of Eight, he's in the movie. Myself, I'm of course in the movie. I'm producing most of it. But it's another look at the monetary issue, and
Right.
we very, very interested in having your opinion because you're
I'll check
very
it out.
specialized. And also, it might fit back into what you said about 1933 and 1971. Maybe this is that spark that gets a new consciousness around the money problem and does take silver to a different height. Why? Because of awareness of, hey, this is a way for we not only to protect ourselves, but maybe cooperate better and put those, let's say, self-serving suckers off to the side. We could ignore them for a while.
Well, it looks like that's what's in the field right now. I, I'm a critic to politics. I voted for President Trump in 2019. This is the very first time I ever voted in my life because I'm an ex-con and I got all my rights restored. And I fully discharged my whole sentence. And Austin, Texas sent me my voter registration, and I was happy. I went to the local church and I lined up with everybody else, and I voted for Trump. And then 4 years of Biden goes by, and the whole time I'm doing a lot of research on Trump and what he represents, and I finally lose all interest in politics completely. I'm seeing behind the scenes now. I'm like, okay, you know what? Uh, I'm just done with it. But it's in the field, and
Yes.
Trump is now being used to nationalize the United States. Everything is becoming internal. He seems to be severing international uh, um, any international claims to American money. It's almost every act he's doing now is stopping foreign economies from siphoning more and more U.S. wealth, stopping all these heavily lobbied interests here in the United States that have been siphoning U.S. wealth for foreign interests. And I don't know if this is all just posturing and that it's making it look like he's trying to solve the problems when something else is in the field, or if he's doing exactly what I had predicted 4 years ago in archaic's videos, and which I did say Trump was going to completely nationalize the U.S. economy to the point where we are no longer sending foreign aid, and it's going to make us filthy rich. And this was in a predictions video I did 4 years ago based off a lot of calendric studies. But 4 years of Biden kind of got those predictions videos out of everybody's mind. Everybody forgot I said that, but I did say that 4 years ago that President Trump is involved. And this was January 9th, 3 days after the January 6th incident. I had released videos explaining Trump is not leaving American politics, and he will be involved in a massive boost to the U.S. economy. And the rest of the world is going to look at the United States and demonize us because suddenly, without the wealth of the United States, we're going to look like bad guys because we're no longer giving it away. And yeah, this is a I don't know what's your take. What's your take on? Have you been following all of these executive orders he's been putting out and what it's doing to international economies?
Somewhat. Again, going back to the January issue, my main take on it at that time, because it was before the publication was written before he took office. But I
Mm-hmm.
said the main thrust that I could see at that time was going into the AI mode, where a lot of these government entities would be dissolved. They'd just be removed, people be laid off, and the AI would take over. I did at the state level. I didn't know what to call it in Texas, but they call it the DMV in California, Department of Motor Vehicles.
It's the same thing here.
And you got to stand in line for 2 hours, and you get up to the window, and this old bat closes the window, lunch break, and you got to stand there, wait for her to come back, and so you fill out your thing. Well, that'll be replaced by a kiosk. You'll come in, you'll press a button, it'll scan your face. It'll say, "Hello, Jason. Put your last license down on the counter or down on this plate." and you do that. It says, I see you had no accidents. Congratulations on a perfect driving record. Here's your new license. It's good for the next 4 years. Have a nice day. And all that takes
David, we're already there in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I go to the tax office, it's all kiosk. When I go driver's license renewal, it's all kiosk. If I go to the county clerk's office to do anything, whatever, pay for whatever services, pay for code compliance, whatever, it is all kiosk now. And you're in and out. There's no waiting in any of these facilities hardly at all anymore.
Yeah, and then that's that's a trend, and you guys are ahead of some of the places I've been. I mean, I spent some of my time in Montana and some of my time here in Washington. But yeah, so you're ahead of me, but I see it. I saw it. It's going to continue, and a lot of this will be, non-human based, obviously, which means there is no human ability to say, well, there's an exception to the rule because it's going to be clear. You're either this or you're that. It's binary, so there won't be any argument where the judge takes pity on you because of or whatever. But it is a brave new world. It's going to be much more mechanized. Unfortunately, the social media thing, in my view, is such a farce because, there aren't real friends out there. You're not really putting that piece of silver on the counter, having a great meal with Justin and Big John and having a memory for the future and actually interacting with each other. You're, FaceTiming each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not against it, but it takes away a level of real connection. And this is what we need to build back. And I'm not going to say build back better, but to build back to a situation where we have more meaning in our life. I think the main thrust I've seen through social media is a lack of meaning. And people are thinking that what they eat for lunch is important, or what the cat dance is doing is important. I mean, we've really gotten away from what is important. What's really important is how we make a living and having fairness in the structure where we do business with each other, either voluntarily or in some cases involuntarily. And this is something that we just don't have anymore. We got to get back there. And that's, again, maybe selfless promotion, but I'm trying to convey in this documentary because we got to get back to basics. And if we don't, I think you alluded to it with the volcanism. Nature has a way of kind of resetting the clock.
Yes,
and
it does.
It's going to sit there and force us into this. If we can get ahead of it, or at least philosophically be mentally prepared. One of my greatest favorite quotes, Jason, I forget who said it, is chance favors the prepared mind. If we are prepared for a hurricane or less food or our job being taken over by AI or whatever the future holds, and we're prepared for that, at least have thought about it, we're going to be able to get through it a lot better than go into panic mode and react. We want to be able to respond. And that's, I think, a lot of what you teach is, especially with your background, that, you had a long road to hoe, but yet you sat there and you didn't do video games, man. You studied, you read, you reread, you thought, you contemplated, you made notes. You did all that stuff. So you made valuable use of our number one commodity, and that's time. And now with all that time under your belt, you're able to give back. And look how much you've done since I first learned about you pretty early on. I was one of the early guys that come on board and say, hey, this guy's really got a message here. So anyway, back to you.
Well, I mean, that's one of my mantras is, oh my God, I was listening to you so deeply, but I totally forgot. I can't even remember. Oh my God, break free or die trying is my main spiritual one, but one who is properly informed is not easily deceived.
There we go.
So that's basically what I like to do with Archaics. I like to inform people. I mean, and I get aggressive with it. I mean, there are people who push my buttons because I know I've researched certain things and I know they're foundational. I know they're true. And I'll go look at these other videos like, what the hell? You just got 120,000 views telling some people some bullshit. Some absolute provable bullshit. Yeah. So yeah, I get triggered every once in a while, but man, it's been a great talk. And yeah, I will, if you will email me the links so I can review that. And when you have a finished product and you want to put it on my channel, we can do that too.
Okay, great.
I would like to see that. I would. It's as far as my own community goes, I got a pretty tight. I'm way off the interstate in Sam Houston National Forest, and we got a real tight community, and it's not easy to get in here. And it's it's if there was a total systemic reset or even a temporary one that lasted for weeks or months, just this community alone could survive. We have enough food, water. Everybody out here's got these 600. Like I have a 600-gallon tank, well, a water tank, and listen, it's you know what? We'd survive out here. We wouldn't even have to leave. When nobody would have to go grocery shopping. Everybody out here's got everything. It's plus we live on the edge, right here on the edge of this forest. You already know what's going to happen. A whole bunch of people are going to take back to hunting and trapping. There's so much deer and pig out here. But yeah, and I live on a lake. Yeah, I'm about 2,000 feet from Lake Conroe. So it's so surviving's easy. Surviving's not. It's a change of lifestyle. But I'm not even worried about any a cessation of civilization. I'm not even worried about it. The only thing that would bother me is my inability to post YouTube if the infrastructure goes down. I can't post videos. If I can't post videos, oh well, so be it. I'll go back to writing books. That's what I did in prison. I wrote a bunch of them, and I really need to get around to writing some more. So you got any last words? That about concludes today. We did pretty good today, hour and 20 minutes.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. This is David Morgan. Like I told you guys, who for those of you who joined late, he reached out to me about 3 years and 2 months ago and sent me 3 silver coins and his published book, The Silver Manifesto, and an email encouraging me back when I was getting attacked a whole lot. Keep my chin up, keep doing what you're doing. And look, I followed that advice, and here's where I'm at today, and I'm not done. I'm gonna keep charging forward. So my mods have been posting the links. You can come back to this video at any time. You can look in the description box, and you can see the link to his channel, and his website is in the description box. Further, my mods have been pretty diligent posting his other links to videos and stuff like that, so you can go check those out, and links to things he was talking about. So I'm pretty much done with this video. I have some errands to run, and I will look forward to reviewing those links and to the finished product so we can see what you're doing, David.
Well, thank you, Jason. It's been a lot of fun. Enjoyed it.
And sometime tomorrow, I will release that video for you guys so you can have instructions to know if you want a 20 to 30 second video of you doing anything at the beginning of a live YouTube video. I'm telling you, this is your opportunity. You can plug your business, you can plug your hobby, you can plug your philosophical statement, networking. If you got a message you need to get out, if this is a certain way that you make money, a side hustle, whatever errands do, this is your opportunity. And we'll do 2 to 3 of them at the beginning of every live video. You'll get a lot of play between YouTube and between archaics.com. It's a potential. We're talking about almost 27 million views between the two. So it's that's what we're gonna. That's tomorrow's video. All right, David. I will talk to you later.
All right. Be well.
Have a good one. Yeah, that's a great guest. Should have had him on here a long time ago, but you know what it is. My life's chaotic. Comes and goes. So I will provide that video to you guys and give you the instructions of what you need to do. I've had a lot of people reach out to me. I'm just not interested in these large companies. And if anybody hits me up and it sounds like MLM, if they hit me up and it sounds like one of these pyramid schemes, or if it's a large Fortune 500 company that's trying to take advantage of the fact that I'm charging almost nothing for what I'm providing, I'm just going to ignore those emails. I'm just going to totally delete them, get them out of my field. I can tell when somebody sends me a 20 or 30 second clip if this is them and this is what they do. You're an astrologer, or it doesn't even matter. You're a masseuse for your community. Whatever it is that you do, you're an errant. You have your own company. You have your own business. You have your own website. You have your own message. Whatever it is, this is your opportunity. Archaic's videos are seen by lots of people. They are spread on platforms. This is your chance to explode. So I know there's people who are going to take advantage of that, who should take advantage of it, like Dr. Corey Stern, who I'm supposed to have back on my channel soon. These videos get shared across Archaics TV. And yeah, my website, archaics.com, is exploding right now. I cannot believe the amount of activity GoDaddy is reporting of people just interested going to archaics.com and just looking at all the different stuff that's available for free. So, that's enough. I'm rambling now. I'm rambling now, and that was great. I still have those 3 silver coins David sent me 3 years ago. They're in my safe. It's crazy. Yeah. All right, let's see. All right, guys. Thank you, Mod. Hey, Errol G. Monica Farrow. Thank you, Mods. Pamela Swan. Always diligent. Let's see. Fellow traveler. Yeah, man. Son of Overbrook, straight out of Florida. Yeah, man. Mr. Bojangles, thank you for rejoining us. Haven't seen you in a while. All right. I'm about to go, though. It's been real. Let me hit that awesome outro. And that was David Morgan. And the link for his book, The Silver Manifesto. I'm going to check it out. It's not a small book. It's not small, but it's not just big because it looks big. You guys know that I'm a book critic, and I've done many book reviews, and I am absolutely unimpressed with anybody who leaves a lot of space between the lines and has large margins around, because it's just filler. They're not really trying to educate you about anything. It's just filler. You guys know I've named several of them that have done that. Billy Carson, Jay Dreamers, their books, when you get them on Amazon, I've ordered them. I've looked at them. It's like, oh my God. It is terrible. This isn't one of them. This guy is small print. He is packing the pages with information, charts, diagrams, all kinds of stuff in here that you need for the markets. He doesn't just talk about silver in it, but what I'm saying is it's a high quality book, and there's no waste of page space. This isn't somebody just trying to add a bunch of filler. So other than that, let me get this. I'm a ramble to death, because you guys know I'm the king of the tangents. Let me get this outro. And tomorrow, expect that new video explaining to you guys exactly what you need to do. I think you're really gonna like what we have, and we're gonna kick the bucket on the big companies. They can F off. Let's see, live video clips. Till next time.